All right, 1 week into training camp, we have back, finally, a guy I've seen every single day, but you have not, because it's been, like a month and a half, 2 months
Wow.
since people's favorite guest on the Pats Interference podcast, brought to you by the bold, bodacious, booty-shaking CLNS Media Network. Doug Kyed, I saw you like 3 hours ago. How are you, pal?
Doing well. It's hot outside today.
Yes. I got into my car after today's practice. It's Tuesday, by the way, July 29th. Patriots just had their second padded practice. Do you want to guess the temperature that my car told me it was inside before I opened the door and sat down?
Well, mine said it was 106. I don't know what yours said.
111. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It really, not to get too deep into the weather here, but like to leave the stadium, you usually go down the ramps, and the ramps are like nice and kind of shaded and everything. And then coming out of security command, which is where we exit, like you walk right into the sun, and it was like jarring how hot it was. It was scorching, I would say, today.
Yeah. And it's funny because, they had that walkthrough on day 3 last week.
Yeah.
And that was, is it too hot? And I checked in and asked. I was like, no, we planned this months ago. And it just so happened to work out. And I'm thinking, well, a walkthrough today would have been nice. But enough about the weather. What I've once described as the death of conversation. As soon as you start talking about things that are obvious to everyone, you have nothing to talk about. However, you and I have a lot to talk about today. I want to do studs and duds through 6 practices and 7 days of Patriots training camp right off the top. But the meat of this episode is going to be about what we think we know, what we actually know now, and then what we think happens next. And this can go in any direction. I don't know what's on your list. I, of course, know what's on my list. And I will say for the folks that are waiting for the completion percentages, and I have everything broken down for Drake Maye, 0 to 9 yards within the line of scrimmage, 10 yards and longer, who's getting targeted in 11s or overall, and all this different stuff. I'm going to wait until next week when we will be back to twice weekly for these big media episodes and a bigger sample and all that. For now, this is, just absorbing everything that Doug and I have seen through 6 practices. Okay. Studs, real quick. Who's having a good training camp?
How many do you want?
I have 4, so less than 4.
I'll do 4. Okay. I'll do 1 to start off. This is not like the sexiest one, but it's the true stud. It's a true winner so far, and that is second-year cornerback DJ James. The guy has a pass breakup every single practice. Like, it can't be ignored at this point. He had an interception. He had the first interception for the Patriots. Like out of anyone on the roster who's helped themselves the most, the answer is unequivocally DJ James. I have ones that actually matter more, but I just need to get that one off my chest first. 6th-round pick out of Auburn last year with the Seahawks, spent all season on the Patriots practice squad, and the guy is making the best push possible right now for a roster spot. And they've got some numbers issues right now at cornerback.
So I don't laugh and exclaim because of the pick. I think it's a good pick. I just imagine for a second the audience that absolutely split 80-20. 80 going, okay, should I fast forward through the next couple of minutes? Who the fuck is this guy? I don't really need to hear about DJ James. And then the 20%, the sickos, who we love at this podcast, as fellow sickos who have their depth charts at home, who are ready, locked in, counting down to the preseason opener, when we'll see a lot of DJ James going, how good is he in man versus zone, blah, 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 scheme fit. DJ James has had a very good start to camp. The fact that those corners, along with Marcellus Dial, Alex Austin, even throw Miles Battle in there as we continue to lose the 80%, have gotten more run. He's been the best of them. I think that's just a fact.
So you want another one?
No, I'm going to go. Let's get an obvious one out of the way. Pop Douglas. He has the most catches on the team through 6 practices in 11 on 11s. I've committed this year just to keeping 11 on 11s when we put him in the giant novellas of practice recaps that I do. He's been the most consistent. He has had a drop here or there, but otherwise separation, tight spaces, the long speed, the way that the Patriots want to weaponize him as a deep threat this season. We'll see how that goes when they face opponents, but so far so good. I like it. And again, when you lead the team in catches, you're doing okay.
I'll give you another wide receiver. Kayshon Boutte has been a winner for me so far. He's been a stud. He's been out there with the starting offense. He's always one of the top wide receivers. I think this was I don't think it's set in stone because Mac Hollins still has to come back, but Kayshon Boutte's done everything that he possibly can to keep a grasp on that starting X wide receiver role. Yesterday in practice during padded practice, he beat Christian Gonzalez on 2 1-on-1s. He's making some big plays or some big catches every day. So to this point, I don't know. I mean, like Stephon Diggs had a strong start to camp, slowed down a little bit. Like Booty has been possibly like better in practice, like in the vacuum of practice than Stephon Diggs has so far with making key catches during practice and in one-on-ones. That's certainly not to say he's better, but like so far who's been better in practice, I think I would say Booty's at least been making more plays and had more catches.
So people on this podcast know that I am not a Kayshon Boutte stan. We'll put it that way. Lower than consensus, I think, is probably the nicest way to put it. Well, the fairest way to put it. I have nothing personal against Kayshon. But you're right. In terms of the efficiency, I think, is the way to describe where he's not getting as many targets as Diggs and Pop Douglas.
Yeah.
But when he gets those targets, I have down in many days and notes, 1 for 1, 2 for 2. Like he's reeling them in. And Diggs has had a couple of drops here. I mentioned Pop Douglas already had that. He has been pretty entrenched as their X receiver with the top offense. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. So I can't complain. Credit where it's due. And he's played well. Going to defense here for a second. Actually, no, let's stay and do offense for one more. Jared Wilson, third round rookie.
Another one of mine, yeah.
Yeah, offensive lineman. I think it's clear the coaching staff wants him to start at one position or another, not because, they drafted him and he's their guy, though that is a part of it. It's just left guard and center are by no means put in Sharpie, right? Like Cole Strange or Garrett Bradbury could lose their jobs. For now, it looks like Cole Strange is the more likely of the two, said again, 1 week into training camp. But Jared Wilson was starting today, starting period, not rotating in after 2 snaps or 3. He was there. He got a promotion. And when you go 3-0, by the way, in one-on-one pass rush as he did today, beating Milton Williams and Christian Barmore, we probably should have led the segment off with them.
No, DJ James. But yeah, no, Jared Wilson he's been great. And I think some people would be a little bit hesitant to move him off of center to guard. And I can understand that, like, you want to develop him at center. If he's going to be your future center, you want to keep him at center. But, like, there's no better way to develop a player than by having him play NFL football. So even if you have to play him at guard for his rookie season and then say, like, all right, we're moving you over to center in year 2, I think that would still be beneficial for him. I think it's also important to remember that this is a guy who began his college career at Georgia as a guard and then was moved to center. The only issue is that, like, is he a little bit undersized to play guard in the NFL? And at 6'3", 310 pounds, maybe, but this is also the same offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels who had like 6'2", 300-pound Ryan Wendell playing guard. You had Dan Connolly who was undersized. Like even Logan Mankins wasn't the biggest guy. So like
Dan Copen back in the day, yeah.
Right, Dan Copen, even like Stephen Neal wasn't the tallest guy. So he's got enough size to play guard. And if they view him as being the best guy, I think it makes sense to start him at guard. And then like if you have to move him around at some point, sure. Or if you have to find a different center 5 years from now or 2 years from now, whatever it is, then maybe you do that too. But it feels like he could make a day one impact at either guard or center. And like you said, it does feel like you'd be more willing to move Cole Strange out of a starting role than Garrett Bradbury, just based on the resources they have in both those players and like who's a Vrabel guy versus who was a Belichick guy.
And I think part of the Garrett Bradbury experience for them, like a lot of the veterans they brought in, they love the locker room piece of that and what he could do for May, even though he's new to the offense and has spoken glowingly about it and how much he's learned and all the different answers and this and that. It's easier to pull out from page 396 of the playbook when you get an amoeba defense look and you need the specialized protection if you're a 7-year veteran like he is versus a rookie in Jared Wilson who is head is going to be swimming. To the point about just getting him out to play NFL football, I think it's a good one because, look, when you play left guard, you're probably going to have some experience at right guard, and he's done that. And it's kind of like, okay, and he's had a bad snap here or there. But he can always go back to center next year. If Garrett Bradbury is like replacement level or just below, then go, he's still our center of the future. But right now, we're going to get you on the field. We're going to have you understand the offense from a position that's a little bit simpler. You're not calling out protections, and you're athletic enough. And we'll see how it goes. And so far, whether it's by need with Strange or just he's been better, and he certainly has been. Bradbury, by the way, over 4 in one-on-one pass rush. Not great here today. Thanks to a stud I'll name here in a second. But, yeah, I like what I've seen, especially for a guy we didn't see basically all of the spring. So this wasn't out of nowhere. He's a third-round pick, but he was picked 97. You didn't have sky-high rookie expectations for the guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my last one would be Caleb Von Chasen. I think he's been a stud. He's gotten a ton of pressures. He's been in the backfield a lot of would-be sacks. He's another guy who I'm like, I don't want to get too crazy high on just because the guy's been in the league since 2020. He was a first round pick. He's had all the opportunities in the world, and he hasn't done a whole lot with them at this point. Had a somewhat breakout season with the Raiders last year where he had 5 sacks. But for me, like, if that's even what you're going to get out of Chason this year as a third rotational pass rusher, that's still probably a win over what the Patriots had last year in their pass rush. Like, if you can get 5 sacks out of that rotational guy, I think his like PFF grade was around like 64, 65. Even that would be an upgrade over what they had. So he's showing it so far. He's really locking down that third pass rusher spot. Seems like it's going to be Herald Landry and Keon White as the starters, and then Chason is going to be that rotational guy behind them at this point.
True or false? You are withholding or resisting some excitement because I have completely abandoned all of the yellow lights and caution tape and gone straight through all of them because he's been my guy.
He has been your guy, but like I really truly like, I think sometimes I get too high on the like, oh, this guy was a first round pick, they can untap that potential. It usually does not happen. And like, we should know that more than anything covering the Patriots because they've had so many of those former first round picks on the team. And usually they do find a role. They're not complete busts. They're not useless, but how, like, it's very rare for that like former high pick to become a really great player the way that, let's say, like Kyle Van Noy did with the Patriots. Usually they find a rotational role, they find some sort of role. I think that's what Chason can do.
Yes, I think that's fair. I don't think they're counting on him to set the edge like you will from Herald Landry and Keon White, who have been entrenched as the starters, but Chason's gotten some run with the first team offense. One more note on him, because I'm going to bring him up later. I'm going to do something I also loathe to do, and this is credit our pal Mike Giardi, who had shared with me in a walk in the stadium the other day. Like, you know, when Chason got to Jacksonville, as people told him, they kind of knew or felt they knew right away, shit, like he doesn't have it. When you go back and look at Chason as a prospect, they should have known better in the sense of he was 20 years old. He was a raw super athlete out of LSU who churned out these guys every 4 to 5 years on the edge. Barkevius Mingo is another one who busted out, to your point. And he's also going to a situation in 2020, granted COVID, no preseason, no OTAs and minicamp, with a Jacksonville team that stunk. Like, there's no environment there for proper development. That said, 4 sacks in 4 years, which is what he had there, is what it is. He was better in Vegas. He just turned 26 and is younger than Keon White, by the way. So I hold out hope, but I think you're absolutely right that his role here will be as rotational rusher. Thing is, those guys can still do a lot of damage. But this is me showing restraint. This is me showing restraint with Caleb on Chason, who's at basically a sack a day. All right, one more.
I wonder how much Danielle Hunter just like broke people's brains as a very unproductive pass rusher out of LSU. And then like teams were like, oh, we could find the next Danielle Hunter and Caleb on Chason. And then that's what happened. So I don't know. It's
funny you bring him up because Mike Vrabel mentioned, I don't know, like press conference 2 or 3 or something, I want to say. We'll skip this because not enough is coming back to me. But anyway, Danielle Hunter, to your point, was a guy who was very raw and talented and took a little bit.
Yeah.
And it certainly panned out. Anyway, last one, Kyrie's Tonga. This is not in the level of excitement that I have for Caleb on Chason. This guy had to run stuff today. He beat Garrett Bradbury twice. He's been their third defensive tackle in a way that I was shocked because, you know, when he came into the league, he billed as like this 2-gapping guy, run stuffer. Man's got some quicks, and he's starting with the top defense, which is not just 2 defensive tackles, 2 edge guys, then you figure out the back end with whatever the nickels are going to be. They're starting 3 defensive tackles sometimes. And this is not goal line. This is middle of the field. Him, Barmore, Williams, pick an edge guy. Let's go. And oftentimes it is Williams on the opposite edge. But to me, that says we not only just see you as a guy who can contribute, but you guy is a guy who can make a real impact for us in a package that they might use a lot more than anybody thought.
Yeah, I think he's extremely important as well this year because obviously you hope that Christian Barmore will hold up and play the whole season, but like that's definitely no guarantee. And if something would happen to Barmore, then Tonga might be a guy who's playing like over 50% of snaps in this defense. So the more good he can do this summer, the better for the Patriots, as they might have to depend on him at some point.
All right, let's zip through some duds. Who you got?
I'm going to give Efton Chisholm one of them. He just hasn't done a whole lot. He was a huge stud during the spring, hasn't showed up that much, and hasn't received a ton of opportunities. Like, he's been the backup slot, but it feels like a lot of the time when they move off that first string offense, they'll go to like 2 tight ends. They won't necessarily go with like the traditional 2 outside wide receivers in a slot. So still time for Chisholm to make up ground, but hasn't done too much over the first 6 practices.
Careful. I care about you. The Epton stands, the Chisholm, whatever's Chisholmites.
Epton sanity.
Epton. Okay. All right. They're out there. Look, I agree. I was pumping the brakes like you do going on your first ride with your learner's permit when everything was coming about Epton Chisholm. And this happens every year with an undrafted free agent. And this year there happened to be 2 with him and Lan Larison, who has been even more invisible than Epton Chisholm. And again, there's a stacked top of the depth chart at running back. My point is, these practices mean more than the ones we watched in the spring. This is also all that we've had, 2 padded practices in 1 week. You're right, this could change. And he very well might rip off a punt return in the first preseason game or the second one that everyone goes, oh, look, there he is. The new pick white guy slot. I think if he was going to return punts in the regular season and probably take an injury to Marcus Jones, which obviously nobody wants, but you're right, he's been quiet. Carlton Davis, this one's easy. Guys missed 4 practices. He was there for the first one. He missed the second one, attended and participated in a walkthrough, and we really haven't seen him since. And for a guy who was unedified, came off for that first practice, I don't get it. I don't like it. I'm going to give you my last 2 here, and then you can rattle off your others. Kendrick Bourne, 1 catch from Drake Maye through 6 practices. Not saying he's going to be cut or traded, but anyone calling him a roster lock, which of course there are not many. This is very close to kind of a straw man, is wrong. It's just not the case. Javon Baker also highlighted today, honored with the Boston Herald play of the day. In total, cut 2 of 6 targets in 11 on 11s, and he has the lowest catch rate among, let's call them regulars with the first or second team offense. It's just not consistent enough. My mind has not changed. Even though he had that big play today, there's not a lot of momentum here.
Yeah, it's very hot and cold with Javon Baker. I guess I would just sum things up with like the 2024 draft class outside of Drake Maye, because Jalen Polk missed the first 4 practices with a soft tissue injury. He's made some plays coming back, but maybe not as many as other receivers. Kane Wallace has moved from right tackle to left guard, and it seems like Jared Wilson has a much better shot at earning that job than Kane Wallace. Layden Robinson running it with a 3rd string at right guard after being a starter for most of last year. Javon Baker, who you just mentioned. Marcellus Dial, I think, has had a better summer this year, but he was actually the cornerback that Javon Baker made that big play over, picking the ball off the top of his helmet. He's been receiving a lot of snaps in the slot with Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis out, but not making a ton of plays. And then Jaheim Bell seems to basically be last on the depth chart at tight end, where it goes like Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper. Then there's like this clump of guys who could all be anywhere, but like Jack Westover's a 3rd guy right now. Feels like G. Scott and CJ Dippre are both ahead of Jaheim Bell right now. Then Jaheim Bell is like rounding at the end of it. He's the guy on like the practice squad reps, third string reps right now. So he would round out the list of duds or losers so far.
There's one Jaheim Bell, it feels like token target at the very end of every practice. It's the last period. It's
and he usually doesn't catch them.
The media, and and sometimes they're not his fault, but
for sure.
He's just not making the team. There's nothing I've seen in the last 2 years aside from being drafted by the regime last year that clung to everything that they had handpicked and turned over to suggest that. G. Scott, by the way, honorable mention among the studs. Multiple catches. He's the only tight end catching passes aside from Hunter Henry. That's probably the best way to put it. I don't know.
That's why like Jack Westover's getting a ton of snaps, but never really gets targeted.
Never did anything except for play fullback today because Brock the Rock Lampy, as we now enter the new segment of this podcast, placed that into reserve, RIP, for a guy who also was seeing first team snaps. And I joke, but that's actually significant given how much 21 personnel they were playing, which isn't to say 50% of the snaps, but 15, somewhere between 10, 20%. It's probably where it was at. So they need to fill that role.
CLNS Media is powered by Prize Picks, the best place to get in on the action, even throughout the summer. There is still baseball, there's women's basketball, and Taylor, we are right on the cusp of football season. There will be preseason games loaded up on Prize Picks. So if you want to get in on the action, head over to Prize Picks. Use code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Okay, here's the meat of the podcast. What do we know now, 1 week into camp, that we did not know last Tuesday? What do you know?
All right. What do I know right now? I believe the Patriots starting defense is set. I know what the starting defense, assuming everyone's healthy, is going to look like in week one. And like just to go through it, Christian Barmore and Milton Williams up front, Harold Landry and Keon White on the edge, linebackers Robert Spillane and Christian Ellis, cornerbacks Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, and Marcus Jones, safeties Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. I feel like over 50% confident about every single one of those guys. And I don't even know like which one I would feel the least confident about. Maybe one of the safeties, like maybe Craig Woodson could possibly move up there, but that would take a huge ascent, I feel like, for Craig Woodson at this point. Jelani Tavai is really not doing a lot to push the linebackers. Like maybe you get Kairos Tonga as one of the starters and one of those edge guys comes off the field, but like guys that you're looking at coming into week one who are all going to be playing the 11th most snaps on the team would be those 11 players.
What's the ceiling for that defense? Like that lineup, let's say it plays 10, 12 games. Everyone starts. What's the ceiling?
Top 10. I'm sure other people might say top 5, but I feel like I've also been kind of fooled by the defenses on the Patriots over the last couple of years. And it's a lot of new guys under new leadership, first year defensive coordinator. Mike Vrabel's got to kind of have his hands in all the different pots right now. So I would say top 10, not moving that into top 5, but I do think there's enough high impact players between like Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Christian Gonzalez that could ascend that unit into the top 10.
Cool. I thought the take was going to be a little spicier than that, but I share in your cautious optimism about the ceiling because you could also look at it as, teams do, offensive coordinators, frankly, do. Okay, where are my problems? Like, where do I have to avoid? Is it a shutdown corner? Well, in this case, yeah. Is it a pass rusher? Yes, Milton Williams. And Barmore, this isn't to knock anything that's happened over the last 12 months, which has been largely out of his control and not good. But you kind of have to see it again from him, right? If you're Chip Kelly, the Raiders offensive coordinator, looking ahead to week one, you're like, he could be a problem, but for now, those are the two guys that I'm working around, and no one else scares me in the way that you would feel like about other elite defenses around the league. So
yeah, for sure. And Christian Barmore, he had every excuse in the world, obviously, last year. Like, I'm not like knocking him on this, but he wasn't good when he was on the field last year, and it was because of the circumstances. It was but like we need to see him be that impact player that he was in 2023 again.
There are moments in this job where, and especially in the Bill era, you at times defer to the authority, right?
Oh,
like this is our job. We spend an inordinate amount of time looking at this team, studying this team, talking to people, learning about all these different things. And yet there are people that are obviously more invested than we are because they're inside the building. And when Christian Barmore came back for that Rams game in late November, without practicing in pads in the year 2024, okay, so you're talking about 11 months. I had said on TV this week, there's no way he's playing. He's not put pads on yet. And then not only goes out and does that, and I'm like, I guess it was okay because he survived. No, it was not okay for that guy to go play NFL football without practicing in pads after that long of a layoff and that serious a health condition, which again, I'm sure he got the okay from Jim Whalen and that staff who's been here for a long time. But absolutely no reason to do that and rush him back as they did, which you and I heard. You heard for people within the team after this season when we wrote about what happened. Just ridiculous. It's a good question though about which of those 11 guys that you laid out. It's a nickel, 3-corner nickel grouping. Mm-hmm. And if they're not playing 3-corner to start, it'll be 3 safety, and they can do that because they have plenty of safeties. I do think you're right that the safeties would be the group to get a shakeup. And it's not because of my lack of confidence as the guy who has pointed out repeatedly. Kyle Duggar played on a high ankle sprain for 3 months last year, meaning his lower leg bones were twisted in a way that they should not have been. And that was misdiagnosed, and he chose to play through it, and the team appreciated that. But Craig Woodson's there. Jalen Hawkins is serviceable. And that's a high-priced player that they inherited, and I think they respect. But he's got to prove it all over again. And so whether it's him or Peppers, by the way, I think that dude is ready to hit somebody else because he would have decapitated Stephon Diggs on the one catch that we all talked about because Christian Gonzalez got hurt the other day. But anyway, they've got more options there than you would at edge, which might be my only other selection if Keon White just cannot set an edge in the early part of the season.
True.
You go to Chase on or you go to whomever. But I think you're right on that because it's a great question. Everything seems pretty set in stone if Jelani Tavai is not going to push Christian Ellis, or Christian Ellis is not going to fall out of that starting job, which I think he could, but for now has been better.
Could. But he got paid a decent amount to be just a special teams player. So like the contract alone made it seem like, all right, this guy's probably going to take this job. Yeah.
And he's more of a scheme fit, right? It's not just the speed, but I think the way that he plays, a really good blitzer, which I know they like. And, they get creative with their 4-man rushers because they're not going to blitz as much as you've seen in recent years. And it probably will go up from their time in Tennessee, but I just know that they like to operate more through those two linebackers than I think a lot of defenses do nowadays on the inside. Yeah. Okay. What do I know now that I did not know on Tuesday? Josh McDaniels has fully committed, 10 toes in, 110%. Pick your cliche to adapting this offense around Drake Maye. What we are seeing in practice is not some sort of groundbreaking. You're throwing in a W or a Y to your X's and O's that no one has ever seen before. But what we're seeing from Josh McDaniels on the practice field are things that we never saw with Mac Jones, not with Tom Brady, and only a little bit with Cam Newton, because what we're seeing are bootleg play action passes. We are seeing read runs and options in the running game that are not your traditional zone reads. You've got a lot going on with him and two backs in the backfield, and movement throws that don't even include bootleg play action passes, which everyone is familiar with from the Shanahan tree. This offense is really tailoring itself to his abilities to move and throw and run, as well as the running backs around him. And it's not just the two back package. It's the way that they're splitting them out and moving them. And I think that's smart because in addition to amplifying your strengths, you need to mitigate your weaknesses as an offensive coordinator. The one possible strength, and probable sounds too strong, but somewhere between possible and probable strength of the offensive line is the run blocking, right? Mm-hmm. And we've seen a ton of outside zone scheme, which the Patriots used to run before, but this was a man blocking, downhill running scheme, and that was the play action that you saw Brady working off of when he would drop back and not go anywhere like Drake Maye is now. This is an outside-inside zone with a little bit of duo type of scheme, all of which is to say, when they talked about this is the McDaniel system, but Todd Downing's going to have a say, and Thomas Brown, who is with McVay in L.A., are going to have their parts. They weren't lying.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, seeing the bootleg, seeing like read option stuff. I think that, Josh McDaniels showed a willingness to use designed runs with Cam Newton in that 2020 season, which I think told you that he would be more willing to do that with Drake Maye than last year's coaches were, who were so scared. Like it seems like it's going to be a pretty dramatic difference from last year at least. But like you have to protect Drake Maye more than you did with Cam Newton in 2020, because like Cam Newton's only strength in 2020 was his rushing ability. He just wasn't a passer at that point. So you had to run him that often. But yeah, you're not going to see the same ratio that you did last year with Drake Maye, where he had 54 rushing attempts and only 9 of them were on designed runs. And I've made this point before, and it might be a dumb one, who knows? I almost think that like, as far as protecting your quarterback goes, you could probably protect him a little bit better on designed runs than you can on scrambles, just because like there's more that you can predict on a designed run than you can on a scramble. You know where your protection's at, you know where your blockers are supposed to go, you know your wide receivers are helping you out. On a scramble, you just can't really put your vision everywhere to see like where defenders are coming. They might be coming behind you. So I don't think you want to have him out there for 100 designed runs the way they did with Cam Newton in 2020. But I think that there are ways to use Drake Maye's legs on design runs while also being able to protect him better than he was last year on some of his scrambles they did get injured on. But no, it's been fun to watch the offense, and it's been notable to see that Josh McDaniels is willing to think outside the box and play to the strength of all of his quarterbacks, because it's not just Drake Maye, who's athletic. Joshua Dobbs obviously athletic. Ben Woodridge ran the ball a decent amount in college. And obviously you hope you don't have to get to those guys, but it did feel like they had a type at quarterback this year to get guys around Drake Maye who could move, maybe not as well as Drake Maye, but can also move.
I got to tell you, if Drake Maye is out for the season by like week 5 and 6 and we have to watch the pastor not, all due respect to a guy who like kept seasons alive in Minnesota and other places doing exactly that. I'm going to have one very long night with a bourbon or 2 or 3. This is,
I'm gonna have a Wooldridge fever.
oh, we have to watch and just go, okay, this is probably all for naught. It's a good point. I agree with you. I don't think that's a dumb point at all, because I think it brings you back to the basics of, okay, how does an option run work, right? You have a deliberately unblocked defender.
Yes.
The quarterback puts the ball in the gut of the running back. And if the defender crashes towards the running back, and this is the simplest version, right? There are other options in reads, but for the sake of simplicity, if the defender goes to the running back, he pulls it and keeps it.
Right.
If the defender just stays there, you hand off to the running back. So like his next move is entirely predicated on the first move of the defender. And that speaks to the control and predictability that you're talking about, where Drake Maye, I think also, as a runner, part of that is motivated by, man, I got to be Clark Kent coming out the phone booth and throw on the Superman cape, because I've got Vidarian Lowe at left tackle and I got Demontre Jacobs at right tackle, and I'm throwing to no one. And that's also what he was dealing with in North Carolina. Like I've talked about this before, knocking the YOLO ball out of him is a big part of Josh McDaniel's job. But when you keep it to specific rules and focuses, whether that is on the option game or it is within the bootleg play action game, that keeps him more focused and I think disciplined than if you just said, hey, throw it away, throw it away, throw it away. Like he only has a couple of options or reads built into every single play. And that goes for a lot of what they're doing right now, which again, I knew McDaniels was malleable. This is something I believed in. But when you see it, you're going, okay, this is not the same offense. Maybe the way it sounds to the players and the downfield traditional drop back passing game is the same with the different route combinations. But the things they're going to feature, or let's say minor in, are very different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I'm excited to watch this offense and see what Drake Maye can do, how they can fully untap that potential. What's the next category here?
What I think I know now, which by the way, I'm going to bring this up quickly. TreVeyon Henderson was gassed, as he should have been when he talked to us on Saturday. I think maybe it was Monday. Now I sound gassed. I asked him after he made a comment about McDaniels really wants to get guys in space. Offensive coaches cliche. I said, how do you know that? Like, what has he shared or said or done? You're like, I'm sure you're not lying, but tell me how you know that. And he looked and was like, you're trying to get me in trouble. And I'm like, no, man, you say whatever you're comfortable saying.
Yeah.
And whatever you feel like you can say. I just am curious what gives you that such strong impression. So don't take it from me. Take it from TreVeyon Henderson, who stopped there and just said McDaniels really wants him in space, which is part of what we're talking about. Yeah. All right. What do you think you know now after watching, but aren't 100% positive?
I think I know that the rookie class will have an immediate impact on this team. And that would be a major difference from 2024 when coming out of the gate, almost none of them made an immediate impact. But you're looking at your starting left tackle in Will Campbell. I think at least to start the season at this point, I would predict that Ramondre Stevenson's still like the starting running back, but that Antonio Gibson and TreVeyon Henderson will both also get a sizable amount of touches, whether it's carries out of the backfield, receiving opportunities. I think both those guys will play. And as the season goes along, I think Henderson will get more and more opportunities. Beyond that, you've got Kyle Williams, who currently looks like he'd probably be like the 4th or 5th wide receiver. But if you're talking about that X wide receiver role that Kayshon Boutte's currently in, Kyle Williams has played it before in college. We'll see if they think that he can do that at his size in the NFL. But he's a guy who could potentially ascend above Kayshon Boutte and will certainly have some sort of role on Sundays as a wide receiver. Jared Wilson could wind up being either your starting left guard or center. Feels like at this point, the chances are he's going to start at one of those positions. We just have to figure that out. And then beyond that, Craig Woodson getting some first team opportunities, playing on the third down defense. He's been involved, maybe not a starter, but if you're talking about someone who could be a free safety type on this defense, it would probably start with him. Joshua Farmer didn't practice today, but he's been getting like some second team reps, maybe a little bit in the first team out there. Braden Swinson, third team reps, but could be a rotational pass rusher as well. Andres Borregales probably going to win the starting kicker role. Marcus Bryant has now received left tackle and right tackle reps on the second team. Julian Ashby has no competition right now at long snapper. And then like Kobe Minor, I have no idea what's going to come of him. Probably won't make the team. Mr. Irrelevant, getting those third team outside cornerback reps. But like all of these guys are involved, and it feels like about half of them could be playing on Sunday in some type of offensive defensive role. And then one or two, maybe three could find starting roles either in week 1 or by week like 8.
So you just did a great job running down every single member of the draft class. I want to do it again by asking you questions because Will Campbell is someone that I've talked about and tweeted a lot about the last like 36, 48 hours, right? First couple of padded practices. We don't have to do this disclaimer anymore of, oh, they haven't put on the pads yet. We don't really know. Like, boom, we've seen it. And I mistakenly had him down for a sack after checking in on this in Monday's practice. He definitely let one up today in Keon White, and they've had the better of each other in one-on-one pass rush. Mm-hmm. What do you think of what you've seen from Will Campbell?
I think he's been solid. One big thing that I would say about Campbell is that like it hasn't been perfect in either padded practice, either like him getting beat on 101s, him getting beat in like half line drills, him getting beat in 11 on 11s, but there's also been positives. It's like, it's not like you're coming out of these practices being like, oh God, you lost his 101s, he let up a sack in 11 11s. Like there have been positives to draw out of each one of these padded practices for Campbell. I think he looks good in the run game. I know that's harder to gauge during these padded practices.
Definitely has.
And
it definitely has.
I think like the bigger concern for him, given the arm length and everything, would be pass protection, but it hasn't all been bad. So I think like he's been fine. I don't want to say anything more about him at this point. I don't think he's been bad because there have been positive moments from him, but I also, given like the struggles that he's had, don't want to say like, oh, he's been fantastic. He's been everything that you want him to be. He's going to be an all-pro week 1 at left tackle. Like he's going to start left tackle one way or the other. And at this point, he's been fine.
Yes. Fine is the right word. Fine is also fine, by the way, for where we are in camp. Yeah. And the more important part, which I learned in the last couple of days, is they're really happy with him. And they're, again, people within the team, don't want to anoint him in any kind of way as franchise left tackle. This is going to work. You definitively know, but his strength stands out. The movement skills, you are going to get beat by guys who are freak athletes as well, which people forget. That's Keon White, not just in terms of the strength, but the explosion. Keon White's arms, by the way, only an inch longer than Will Campbell's. Will Campbell's arms, as long as Rashawn Slater's. Rashawn Slater just became the highest paid left tackle and offensive lineman in NFL history. His wingspan, though, Slater's is much longer than Will Campbell's. Moving on, it's fine that he's fine right now. And the point about him being a better run blocker than a pass protector, I think, is going to hold true the entire freaking season. And they're just going to have to live with that. And there are ways to work around it. But for now, there is no reason to, panic, change course. He's had some bad moments. He's been on the ground the last 2 days in individual drills. But when you get into the team portion of it, it's been better. That's the more important, more telling thing. Okay, Traven Henderson. You mentioned that a lot of touches will go to him, Gibson, and Stevenson. I agree. The number, though, is interesting to me. If I told you they would all get 90 touches by the end of the year in a 17-game season, too high or too low?
Maybe too low.
It's a good number, though, right?
It is a good number. It's like kind of, like you could imagine Gibson winding up with like right around 90. Because I think that like he's probably going to be the odd man out by week 18, or at least you hope he is if you're the Patriots. That like
or the third running back, like he's making
right, not odd man out necessarily, but like among that group, like he would probably be getting the least work by week 18. But no, I mean that sounds about right. I think like two of them, I think Stevenson and Henderson will wind up with significantly more than that. But I think that like the third guy will probably still wind up with that amount because like, there's also the element where like Gibson was better than Stevenson last year. And we all believe that Stevenson will be the starter. That's what it looks like right now. But if he comes out of the gate fumbling the way they did last year, I don't think Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel are going to stand for that for a second straight year.
Yeah, I agree. And I only bring that up because I think people are underrating not the running back by committee. I have no answers for any fantasy folks. It's not because I'm annoyed by the questions. It's just it's difficult, and going into this, it's difficult to parse out. The thing that I've offered is I think Traven Henderson very much has a pathway to doing what Ramondre Stevenson did to Damian Harris in 2021 as the younger, more explosive back who was also a better pass catcher, and replacing him as the starter or the featured guy. there are things Henderson will have to do to earn that trust. And that comes with just practices like this. But I do think all three of them, the Patriots are going to lean into that as a strength, because right now, among their skill positions, it's better than their group of receivers. Mm-hmm. And I think probably better than whatever you think of Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry, because you'd rather have Stevenson and Henderson on the field than those two. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think, obviously, I think Henderson's going to play a lot. I think he's going to be a good player. There's some stuff that he definitely still needs to clean up, though, too, because, fumbled a handoff. He's had some drops. It hasn't been a perfect experience for TreVeyon Henderson so far.
No. Kyle Williams, I think you had an apt description. Jared Wilson, we already talked about. Are there any day three guys really quickly that are most interesting to you here so far? Like Woodson comes up all the time. I know the free safety thing is real. I just know that I think the structure of the secondary is going to lend itself to a lot more too high. And so that will mitigate some of the concerns about, there's no Devin McCourty type in the backfield. Yeah. But is it him, Swinson, Farmer, Borgalis, who was 6-6 today?
I think it's Woodson, just because I think he's got the highest possibility of making an impact on the offense or defense. Borgalis, obviously, I think will make a bigger impact overall, but I still can't do it with special teams a lot of the time. I can't get that excited about it.
Yeah.
It's not like offensive line.
Yeah. No, I hear you. All right. What do I think? I know. I think the Patriots have a top three with their receivers it's put in erasable pen. Steph Diggs, Demario Douglas, and Kayshon Boutte, who just has not moved from what's often been the X receiver spot. He even had a couple of snaps in the slot, only 12% last year. Totally different offense, but the point stands. There's a drop-off to Kyle Williams, who has not done anything from a volume standpoint. He had 4 catches today. Has not even gotten there in team periods in any of the 6 practices. And again, it's only been 6 practices. But Boutte has not done anything to lose that spot. Diggs is absolutely going to start. And we already covered that Pop Douglas has been the best receiver on the field. So there is room for Kyle Williams to elbow Kayshon Boutte out for some snaps. And they're giving him that opportunity. I should be clear. He's running with the first team offense. They're rotating a lot with those receivers. They did 8 or more on Monday, just yesterday, in their first padded practice. But Kyle Williams dropped today, dropped a couple of practices ago, is not winning consistently. And I mean that both in terms of catches and with a variety of routes that you go, okay, I can count on Kayshon. I know what I'm getting from Kayshon Boutte when I put him at that spot.
What do you think happens when Mac Hollins comes back?
It's a great question. I think he profiles as a really good number 4 receiver. And I think right now that's what he would be. And the fact that they don't need him, at least I think, it speaks really well to the state of the receiving core, which again, I don't love. I think you would still call this, if not bottom 10, certainly below average across the league. But, him as a core special teamer, red zone target, good locker room guy, that still seems to be his fit here.
So in 2022, when Josh McDaniels was head coach of the Raiders,
broke out.
Mac Hollins played 17 games, started 16, wound up that season with more targets than Josh Jacobs, Foster Moreau, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller. Gets a little worse after that, Zamir White. So I think that's the only thing that gives me pause about the 3 wide receivers are set in stone, is that there's a world in which Mac Hollins comes off PUP and it's this is our X wide receiver. Does he have Devontae Adams potential as an X wide receiver? No, but he's a guy that Josh McDaniels knows that he can count on, who got almost 700 yards with him back in 2022. But that being said, that was 3 years ago now. Mac Hollins is 30. He's going to be 32 years old by week 3. Didn't equal 690 yards between 2023 and 2024 combined with the Falcons and Bills. So I think that Kayshon Boutte gives you more upside as your starting X wide receiver. I'm just still curious to see what happens when Hollins comes back. But it is tough to see any of the other wide receivers really making a push for one of those starting roles. Maybe I don't know, Jalen Polk, I don't think at this point is going to do it. He's certainly not going to
He
start.
should get more opportunity. Like there are guys
He will,
before Jalen Polk took the field, right? Cut him already.
I mean, I certainly wasn't, but yeah, there was a million fans that
these
were
are insane trading camp
right.
Twitter mentions, but
I'm just curious to see what impact Matt Collins makes there.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think him being 32, and he's a classic case of a guy that like arrives and he has a great first press conference, and you hear all these like different things about him, and then you go, he's been on 8 teams 10 years, and you're like, well, that sounds like someone that everybody likes but doesn't love enough to commit to. Like that can also be a problem. But again, there's a role here for that guy who has got system experience, provides a locker room leadership as they rebuild not just the roster but the culture, and is going to play a role on special teams. But yeah, I think he'll be more of a, red zone target. And honestly, if Kayshon Boutte does something that runs afoul of the Patriots, of note, his press conference the other day ran 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes. We're not analyzing press conferences, but I'll just say I think that's reflective of the Patriots wanting to pull him before he can say something like he did last year, twice, ostracizing the offensive coordinator. But look, if he does something again that runs afoul of Mike Vrabel, he goes, yeah, we don't need you. We got Matt Collins. Yeah. And it's not a great option, but it's more than the Patriots had last year, more than they've had since Kayshon Boutte's been here. So that's it. Not set in stone. Erasable pen. That's what I think from what I've seen. Yeah. All right, what comes next? What do you think comes next?
So what I think comes next is that we actually start to see the Drake Maye breakout as camp goes along, as we get into joint practices, as we even get into the preseason, because it hasn't happened yet. Like, he's made highlight plays, but overall, and you don't want to like parse, you don't want to like overanalyze training camp completion percentage, but like it goes beyond that. When you see the completed, like, what was it today? 6 of 13, something like that. And
7 of 13 and 11 on 11s. Yeah. 3 and 9.
Like, 3 and 9 and 1. Obviously that in itself tells a story, but it's also like, when you're seeing him in 7-on-7s and he's overthrowing guys or the accuracy's off, I think that, and like a lot of the early in camp when he was going like 5 of 6 or like completing almost 100% of his passes, it was so many short passes and so many checkdowns. It does feel like Josh McDaniels, Ashton Grant, Mike Vrabel are being like a little bit safe with Drake Maye to be like, let's avoid turnovers. Let's play it safe. Let's focus on checkdowns. We're going to go first down. We're going to do short passes. We're going to be near the red zone. Don't take any risks. And I mean, Drake Maye, to his credit, he hasn't thrown an interception of camp so far, right? I'm not crazy about that.
Correct. Yeah. 6 practices.
So like he's doing a good job, assuming that it's within those restraints. But now I think that you want to see him be unleashed a little bit more over the second, third week of camp, into those practices, joint practices, preseason games and everything. And I have confidence in Drake Maye they can do that, because we already saw it a little bit during the spring where like things started out slow, then he progressed and got better and better. So that's what I think now is going to be the future for this Patriots offense and Patriots training camp, is that the offense starts to take a bigger step forward because Drake Maye is going to keep improving.
Yes or no, he was Drake Maye today?
Yes. And it would have been like Drake bad, not a worse pun. But he made like 2 really good throws. He made the over the shoulder throw to Kyle Williams today. He made a strike in the back of the end zone to Stephon Diggs today. Like, he made some good passes, but like beyond that, things were like bad at times for him today.
Yes. Had some bad misses. Yeah. And look, I joke that you don't want to overanalyze. That's what we're here for. Context. Like today, context was they were in the red zone. That's not an excuse.
Yes.
If you want to, you can go look at the completion percentages inside the red zone. This is available on Pro Football Reference for the best quarterbacks in the league, and you will find that they hover around 50%.
Yeah.
One of those incompletions was a drop. These are not excuses for Drake Maye, because I will complete this sentence now by saying he's been closer to Drake Maye than Drake Maye. And this is not anything we're unfamiliar with, because you remember the start of last year when the first 2.5, 3 weeks, you're going, Jacoby Brissett's been better than him, and he's raw. Maybe this is a redshirt year and blah, 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 blah. And then he takes off. In the last 2 weeks, you go, should he start week 1? And even as someone who went way too far in terms of the protection and how afraid I was, just given how bad that offensive line was, it was the right call to start him in week 6, and he takes off. And everything we've seen since screams franchise quarterback. I like that prediction. I think it's also fair to note again, context. It's good he's not throwing interceptions. It's good to note he's had a couple of drops. But when you look at the incompletions, you're like, a couple of these are not even competitive. Like Hunter Henry alone today in targets, in 11-11s, had one at his feet, one way ahead of him, and then one behind him that Christian Ellis got his hand on and broke up. And you just can't have that. So that's been part of the Drake Maye experience. He'll get better. I think that's a good prediction for what comes next. I'm going to end this by just coming back to my guy. I mean, Caleb Chase. You want to talk about breakouts. The guy's averaging almost a sack per practice. He's just turned 26. You got the happy birthday vibes coming from this guy who's got a roll. He's got spin moves. He's got incredible bend, the pedigree. Like, I think this is about timing and environment. I said multiple times my belief in their new outside linebackers coach, Mike Smith, who, you could also call someone like a Matt Collins of the coaching world, that he's been a billion places and everyone likes him but doesn't love him enough. The point is the power of the sample is really encouraging to me. And you could do this in a small sample thing, and you're often right when you do that. I'm more convinced he's not only on the roster, I think he's in there as a rotational pass rusher, and I'm really excited to see, hopefully, what everyone thought they would see 5 years ago when he was drafted as he goes now into year 6, because it's tantalizing. And it's only been 2 bad practices. He had a couple of losses today, including Will Campbell in 1-on-1s. But, man, I think they got a guy that you put on third down, and we talked about problems earlier. He's not going to get double teamed with Milton Williams on the field, but he's going to get some really good opportunities. And I think the Patriots will know how to take advantage of it. So, yeah, I think the breakout continues. I think everyone calls it a breakout.
Yeah, and like he doesn't have a lot of competition right now for those third down snaps. So it really feels like, unless like Braden Swinson has a crazy breakout over the next month, it's going to be Caleb Chaison's role. And I think that he can do at least as well as he played last year with the Raiders. And one thing I'm curious about on that edge group is, like, does Anthony Jennings make this team? If he does, is he like just purely a backup where, like, if Landry or Keon White got hurt, then you could thrust him in there on first downs and second downs. But like, what really happens with Anthony Jennings? Because he's still pretty buried on the depth chart as well. And just feels like a Bill guy who might not have the greatest fit here, but still possibly worthwhile enough to be a depth option. But yeah, that kind of speaks to where Caleb Chaisson is, where it's like, yeah, it's his job and there's no one really behind him.
Okay. There are 4 players, I think, in the starting lineup that we did not talk about. I think we've talked about like 40 players here. So can we hit these really quickly so then I can tweet like Doug and I covered basically every player that you care about?
Sure.
Okay. I think they are Mike Onwenu, Morgan Moses, who left practice today. Did this in my quick recap. If you haven't listened to that already, it takes literally 2 minutes. Milton Williams, very, very quickly, and Marcus Jones. So start wherever you want there.
I think Marcus Jones has had a good camp so far, actually. He's been getting his hand on the ball. He's been holding his own against like Pop Douglas, Stephon Diggs. So that's where I would start. Morgan Moses, maybe a little bit of a concerning start to camp, but I'm still personally confident that it's going to round together, that he's going to be a gamer, that like he's going to overcome it. And because like he's kind of been in and out of the lineup. Today he just walked off the field. It didn't seem like it was like out of anger or like a discipline or anything like that, but just feels like a guy that they're easing back in a little bit more, that can get better as camp goes along. Milton Williams, I haven't personally seen that much from at this point. But I think that he can continue to make an impact on Sundays. And Mike Onwenu, I don't know. I haven't honestly noticed Mike Onwenu a lot, which is usually a good thing with offensive linemen.
It is a good thing. And let me fill you in. He was undefeated today against Milton Williams and Christian Barmore in 1-on-1s. He has cleared some room for some really big runs out there, and people talk about his weight all the time. And I've asked him. I think you've asked him.
Looks slimmer now than he did in the spring.
He looks a little bit, but the man can also just carry it. Like, especially if he's going to play guard, I care so much less about this. And granted, the run scheme, if they're going to do a lot more outside zone, it could be a factor. But good camp for Michael Onwenu. Really good. Morgan Moses, if I had to guess, this is speculation. There's no intel here. Felt like a guy who was like sick and just realized I can't play through this, because Anthony Jennings, of all people, went right by him in pass rush, and that's when he walked off. But it has been a shaky start. I'm not there to worry. They are preserving his snaps. He's not getting pulled or benched for DeMontre Jacobs. Right. I've written about this several times. And then Milton Williams, not destructive. Had him down for 1 sack yesterday in padded practice. Maybe it was Saturday. But the point is, like, he's doing enough where you go, okay, that's their best defensive lineman. It's just not, dominating in the way that you would see. But we got a long way to go in camp. All right, that has been every player that you care about. That has been Doug Kyed, my guy, Boston Herald. We have a lot more coming up. You'll be back on this podcast, I'm sure, in about a month or so. In the meantime, more 2 minutes of training camp recaps. Subscribe to the YouTube channel @_ Andrew Callahan. Subscribe to the Pat Chat podcast. When are you guys talking again? You and Hurley?
Probably Thursday. I think we're going to do like Mondays and Thursdays, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I will not have another long episode like this for the rest of the week. So get your fill Thursday with the Pat Chat podcast, and they go live, which I will be doing soon, but not just yet. So that's been it. 1 week of training camp. What we know, what we think we know, what we think comes next. I'm so excited to get a 44 jersey for somebody. Caleb Chase. He's here, baby. Anyway, thank you, sir.